morning, everyone, and welcome back to Wake and Take. It's your boy, Jason, and we've got some football to talk about today. It is Wednesday, and, normally on Wednesday we do a little bit of a market watch, but as we're getting further or closer to the end of the season, it's, a little bit tougher to make those moves. Plus, tomorrow is Thanksgiving, so I wanted to give an early look at starts and sits, go position by position, give a start and sit, as well as 3 flex plays. Well, today we've actually got 4 flex plays that you can go ahead and look at when you're setting your lineup. Since it's a short week, we've got this week a little bit earlier. We're already looking at this stuff. So today we're doing that starts and sits. It's going to be a fun one. Go ahead and take out your coffee, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. And welcome in, everyone. Lex, plant some trees. Donald, our fearless producer. Dustin, Mark, thank you all for tuning in. And if you're listening via the podcast, thank you for listening as well. Again, guys, if you want to listen to the podcast, you can find it via the link in the description. Wake and Take is available wherever you listen to your podcasts. Now, we've got starts and sits today. As usual, this is a shorter episode. We're going to go position by position, do a little bit of a start, a little bit of a sit, and then give you some flex plays. We'll answer some questions at the back of the show, so go ahead and start asking those. But let's go ahead and get right on into it. Let's start at the quarterback position. And shout out Dustin for putting together these festive overlays, a little bit of a turkey on the overlay for those of you just listening. So shout out Dustin for that. The quarterback that I want to start is Will Levis. Will Levis is going up against the Commanders. And yeah, if you go look at the Commanders, they are actually number 1 in pass attempts allowed and number 4 in pass yards allowed, but they've allowed the 22nd most passing touchdowns and kind of just got sliced and diced by Cooper Rush, who threw for over 200 yards and 2 touchdowns with no interceptions. Will Levis has been steadily building upon his success over the last few weeks. 19 points, 16 points, 17 points, starting to run a little bit as well, kind of finding his rhythm in this offense. And I just think this matchup against the Washington Commanders should be a fun one. Vegas is expecting about 44.5 points. The Commanders are favored by 5.5, so it's still going to be within 1 score. And I could just see Will Levis kind of just playing from behind against a softer Commanders defense. And just figuring it out, getting some fantasy points. And I just see him, sitting on a lot of people's benches. I think that this is a week that you can actually start Will Levis up against that Commanders defense in a potential shootout, with Jaden Daniels on the other side. Points have to be scored. And well, I think Will Levis will score some points like he has been. So Will Levis is a quarterback I am fine starting. And believe it or not, at the quarterback I want to sit this week, and it's tough. Obviously, it's very tough. I mean, this could go either way, but I'm going to go with Jameis Winston. I'm going to sit Jameis Winston against the Denver Broncos, mostly because the Denver Broncos defense is just so good, right? They are top 3 in points allowed and yards allowed. And in terms of the pass, they are top 10 in yards allowed and passing touchdowns allowed, and 12th in interceptions so far this season. The Broncos defense is really phenomenal, even against the run as well. They have just been so stingy. And Jameis Winston, let's face it, struggles against top-tier defenses. And I know last week against the Steelers, he was decent, and put up those 14 points, and that's about what I expect here. No touchdowns, really, or maybe 1 touchdown and an interception or something like that. Definitely more of a floor game for him this week, just with a tough defense. And we kind of see from him, back-to-back, or, not back-to-back, but, off and on, right? 23 points, 13 points, 26 points, 14 points. And generally you would say that maybe this would be the off and on week. He would be back on this week since he only had 14 against the Steelers, but he also kind of played pretty well against the Steelers. He had the rushing touchdown. He was able to even win the game in the snowy conditions. And yeah, he didn't score the passing touchdowns or pass as much, only 27 pass attempts, but if that was a normal game, I think he actually would have had a more successful game. So I think he kind of falls back to earth against this tough Broncos defense this week, has a little bit of a tough sledding, and struggles against a tough defense in the Denver Broncos. So we are going to be sitting Jameis Winston. And at the running back position, as we get into the running backs, I want to start DeAndre Swift in the revenge game against the Detroit Lions. So this is why we're doing this show today, because we've got Thanksgiving players to talk about. And DeAndre Swift on Thanksgiving against the Lions, I just think is going to be a really, really fun matchup. And I realize that the Lions are pretty good against the run, but DeAndre Swift gets it done in the receiving game as well. And I just think that while the Lions' rush defense is tough, that he's just going to be kind of fired up a little bit with the revenge narrative. They are expecting a lot of points to be scored, 48.5. However, Lions are favored by 10. I think that the Bears could actually cover this. We've been seeing the Bears look a lot better over the last few weeks, last couple weeks. And DeAndre Swift, in particular, has kind of been quiet and losing, and fantasy managers are kind of losing faith in him. But I think he can bounce back this week in a potential shootout against the Lions with the revenge game narrative, right? Like, he's still getting over 15 touches a game. We just want to see the receiving yards and probably a touchdown. I think he gets that in this game, gives it to the Detroit Lions in Detroit in the revenge game on Thanksgiving. I want to fire up D Swizzle. And the running back we're sitting Najee Harris against the Cincinnati Bengals. They are the Cincinnati Bengals defense on paper doesn't seem that good, but they're actually fairly stingy. Especially as it pertains to fantasy points allowed. They're giving up the yards and the touchdowns here and there, but it's really just been a couple big games from other opponents, and it's not very consistent. And Najee Harris over the last few weeks in particular has just steadily declined, while Jaylen Warren has been getting better and better. And I just think that with this kind of stingy matchup against the Bengals, that Najee Harris is going to struggle. He is touchdown dependent. And when you look at this game and the Steelers defense in general, their holes are more so, or the Bengals defense is more in the pass game. I just think as the Steelers pass, or as the Bengals pass, the Steelers will be passing as well, kind of leaning away from Najee Harris, going towards more Jaylen Warren in this game. And so I just think we have a little bit of a floor matchup from Najee Harris against this Bengals defense. 47 points expected, so it should be a little bit of a shootout here. Definitely a good game. But I just think that Najee Harris is kind of going to find himself as the odd man out in the Steelers offense. Kind of come down a little bit more to Jaylen Warren, as well as George Pickens, Russell Wilson, and really the rest of the passing offense in Pittsburgh for this game. So we are going to be sitting Jaylen Warren. And before we get into the wide receivers and tight ends, I do want to play a little bit of an ad break. So here's the Podfather telling us some more about Fast Draft DFS.
Oh, incredible news about Fast Draft. Fast Draft DFS is live. It's called the Flex 6 Frenzy. You just draft 6 guys, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends for the Sunday slate. You like Jahmyr Gibbs? You like Jackson Smith-Njigba? You like Tyrone Tracy? Draft him. And the beauty is you can just order 5 teams, submit your rankings, and Fast Draft will email you the results. We awarded $1,000 in prizes our first week, and we're just going up from there. Soon there's going to be a select 6. No drafting at all. You just pick any 6 guys. Our DFS mantra, just say no to salaries on Fast Draft. Don't forget there's free tools on Fast Draft too. You want to get ready for startup season? We've created the best Dynasty mock draft experience there is. And if you want to play in these DFS contests, and our best ball contest for 2025 coming very soon too, just use promo code PODFATHER when you deposit and you get a free draft. It's that easy. And you're like, oh, I already have Fast Draft. Great. Refer a friend. Have them put your username in as the promo code, and then you and your friend will both get an instant deposit match up to $25. We got DFS. We got Dynasty Mocks. We got Best Ball. It's all there for you on fastdraft.app. Check it out. And the promo code is PODFATHER.
Definitely go check out Fast Draft DFS. The Flex 6 Frenzy is a very, very fun contest. And it's not just that. This week, we actually have a Thanksgiving contest launched as well, the Turkey Tourney. So go click on the DFS tab, and you can actually draft a Thanksgiving team for some extra DFS action this week on Fast Draft. Again, you could use code PODFATHER for a free draft, or you can use code Billy Joel Fan 87 for a first deposit match up to $25. And that's more money. So definitely check out Fast Draft and the DFS tournaments, especially the Thanksgiving one tomorrow, but also just for week 13 in general as we gear up for Sunday. So let's go ahead and move on to the wide receiver position of starts and sits. And another Thanksgiving player that I want to talk about today is Malik Nabers going up against the Cowboys. I want to fire him up. I know that people are scared of Malik Nabers, but as we talked about on Top 10 Takeaways this week, the Tom Savage corollary is alive and well, and Malik Nabers is still being fed. He had 9 targets last week, brought in 6 of them for 64 yards, and still had 12 points against a tough Tampa Bay defense. And all we really need in the other direction is a touchdown. He has not had less than 10 points since week 7, and even then, that was 8 points. And previously to that, it was 3 straight 20-point games. Malik Nabers has been fantastic this season, and I think against the Cowboys on Thanksgiving, he can keep it going. And we're also going to add a little bit of a finger cross moment and look at the Tommy DeVito injury. He has a sore forearm, a little bit of a pride string. And so hopefully maybe even we see some Drew Lock action, which would be even better for Malik Neighbors. But even if it is Tommy DeVito back there, he's still being fed, still getting targets against the soft Cowboys defense that have actually given up the second most points on the season. We just saw Terry McLaurin have a good game against the secondary. I think Malik Neighbors can as well. Vegas is only expecting 37 points, but as we just saw from the Cowboys, they can definitely hang more than Vegas is giving them credit for as they beat the Commanders last week. So I think that this will be higher scoring than the Vegas expects. And I do think that the Giants can keep it close as long as Tyrone Tracy and Malik Neighbors are involved. And I do think that Malik Neighbors will see, 10 plus targets in this game, hopefully score a touchdown. But even if he doesn't, I think he'll be solid enough in PPR. So we are going to fire up Malik Neighbors against the Cowboys. As you know, he had the squeaky wheel, kind of complaining about the team, even got chewed out by the coach this week. I think everything's kind of lining up for a little bit of extra of an oomph this week from the rookie wide receiver. And we're going to get bold. We're going to get bold here. As we know, when we sit a wide receiver on this start-sit show this season, we have gotten crazy. It's just tough, right, to just say, sit a fringe wide receiver. That's not fun. That's not what you're here for. You're here for takes like this. Sit DK Metcalf against the New York Jets. This is a tough secondary. Jackson Smith-Njigba is breaking out, and DK Metcalf, I assume, will kind of get the Sauce Gardner treatment. The New York Jets are top 3 in pass attempts allowed, yards allowed, and passing touchdowns allowed. They have been killing it against the pass, which should leave the door open for Kenneth Walker to have a good game. But also, as I mentioned, with Sauce Gardner likely on DK Metcalf, I think Jackson Smith-Njigba will keep his breakout going, and we'll see a little bit of a floor game from DK Metcalf. Now, I understand that a floor game from DK Metcalf is still going to be about 8 points, but that's just not enough this week. We're getting into the nitty-gritty of the season. We need ceiling performances, and I just don't see it happening against this Jets team, especially with the Jets kind of playing as they are on offense, right? Aaron Rodgers struggling and everything, so I just don't think this will even be that high scoring either. So DK Metcalf is someone that we could actually be benching this week, believe it or not, in a tough matchup against the Jets. I just don't think there's going to be enough volume to go around, as well as him being locked down by the Sauce Man. We're going to be benching DK Metcalf. I know it's crazy, but that's what we're here for. Now at the tight end position. The tight end position is my least favorite part of the show every week, just because it's like, if you've got a tight end with a pulse, you're probably just starting them. But I wanted to use this time. I wanted to use this time to kind of bring home a point that Podfather talked about last week even, and that is Jonnu Smith. He said that just because Jonnu Smith is scoring points, starting him doesn't mean you're point chasing. It doesn't. He is an explosive third to fourth option on an efficient offense. So that's a tight end that you can pretty much always start. And on Thanksgiving, Jonnu Smith is taking on the Green Bay Packers, which looks to be a little bit of a shootout. Vegas is expecting 47 points. Packers favored by 3.5, but it really could go either way. And I just think that Jonnu Smith will keep it going. He has back-to-back 20-plus point games, 19 targets over the last 2 games, and continues to break out. His athleticism is incredible. His volume is incredible. And this is a fun shootout matchup. Yes, the Packers defense is fairly stingy, but also Jonnu Smith is getting volume, is hyper athletic, and this is a very fun matchup. So we're going to be firing up Jonnu Smith. If you've got him, keep him in your lineup. He's doing well. There's absolutely zero reason to bench him right now. Fire up Jonnu Smith against the Green Bay Packers. And the tight end we're sitting, again, I hate this portion of the show. It's so hard to say to sit any tight end. And it's not like I can come up here and say, sit Tyler Conklin. You know what I mean? Like, I've got to be bold. That's kind of the onus of a broadcaster, if you will. You know, you can't just go up here and say the easy takes. You can't do it. So in the interest of keeping this bold, keeping it entertaining, and trying to find the guy that has a tough matchup that is near the top of his position, it's Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram may be worth sitting this week against the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans are the number 1 defense against the tight end position this season, are giving up the least amount of touchdowns and yards to the position. They are locking down tight ends. And this game in general looks to be pretty low scoring. The Jaguars offense is putrid, and the Texans offense has been kind of putrid over the last few weeks. 43.5 points are only expected, so it's a low scoring game. And we're not sure what's happening at quarterback. it looks like Trevor Lawrence may be returning. So if Trevor Lawrence returns, you can probably fire up Evan Ingram with a little bit more confidence. But if it is still Mac Jones, you definitely don't want to start Evan Ingram. Mac Jones has been kind of terrible for Evan Ingram. He's getting the targets still, but he's just not getting any yards. Only 68 yards over the last 2 games with Mac Jones, and that's off 11 receptions. So the Texans are very good against the tight end position. This looks to be a kind of boring, bad game. And while Evan Ingram's getting the volume, it's not really turning into fantasy points. So if you have another option, I don't mind going elsewhere this week and benching Evan Ingram against the Houston Texans. Which leads us to the flex plays. And I've actually got 4 for you this week. As one of them, I'm not sure if they're going to be playing. As it's Wednesday, it's just a little bit early, right? It's a little bit early as it pertains to the injuries. We haven't had most teams even practice yet. So we'll see. And that player is Austin Eckler. If Austin Eckler plays, we're firing him up. But he's got a clear concussion protocol, and we're not sure if that's going to happen. Also, Pip is being really bad, so let me take him out. Jeez. This bird. Anyway, Austin Eckler going up against the Tennessee Titans is a fun matchup. That Commanders-Titans game in general, as we talk about starting Will Levis against the Commanders, I think will be a lot more fun than Vegas is giving it credit for. And with Brian Robinson kind of banged up and the Titans actually being good between the tackles, I think that that'll open the door for Austin Eckler to kind of be the focal point of the backfield in this game if he plays. Right, so that's just kind of our if he plays. We do want to fire up Austin Eckler in the flex, but we're not sure if he's playing it. So I've got 3 others for you. And generally, as we know, these aren't like crazy analytical or anything like that. It's just kind of betting on game scripts and scenarios and stuff like that. It's flex plays. We're trying to have fun here. And Christian Watson going up against the Miami Dolphins on Thanksgiving is a very fun matchup. Again, as we talk about Jonnu Smith, firing him up against the Packers, I just think that this is going to be kind of a shootout. I think this will be a very fun game to watch Thanksgiving evening as we're kind of a little bit of a food coma, sitting back on the couch. I don't even know how I'm going to be feeling on Thanksgiving. I've got 4 meals to go to. But Christian Watson, I think that this could be a little bit of a ceiling game from him. He had the big game a couple weeks ago, fell back to earth this week, couldn't bounce back this week in a shootout against the Miami Dolphins. I think they'll be able to lock down Jaden Reed and Romeo Doubs a little bit more, leaving the door open for Christian Watson to find a chunk play and be a stud tomorrow on Thanksgiving. Flex him if you have him. And then the Buccaneers-Panthers backfield, right? So Chuba Hubbard going up against the Buccaneers. He continues to kill it. You're going to continue to fire up Chuba Hubbard as long as you have him in your flex. There's just no reason not to. He has been killer over the last few weeks. Bryce Young has kind of been unlocked in terms of dumping it off to the running back. And so I want to continue trusting that. The Panthers are going to have to kind of play from behind a little bit, which should benefit Chuba Hubbard in the pass game. Keep firing him up as long as you have him in your flex. And then Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving keeps it going this week against the Panthers. Had a great game last week. I think this Buccaneers backfield will keep it going this week as well. Panthers pretty soft on defense, which should open the door for Bucky Irving to have another big day. So we want to flex him as well. And you might as well, I would say you could flex Rachaad White too. I don't really care. Either of them are fine. I like the Buccaneers backfield, but went with Bucky Irving as my main choice. And that'll do it for our starts or sits of week 13. I'm going to go ahead and hop into the chat and answer your questions. And then we'll get out of here. Thank you all so much for tuning in, as always. Lex Plants Some Trees wants to know, should they drop Jonathan Brooks for Gus Edwards? You have J.K. Dobbins. I don't hate it. I mean, I don't know what Jonathan Brooks is going to be able to do this season. Chuba Hubbard's playing really well. It's going to take an injury. And even if there is an injury, I don't know if Jonathan Brooks is going to be able to be as good as Chuba Hubbard has been, especially as he's still, kind of recovering from his injury. Now, I'll say this. The situation with the Chargers backfield, I don't think that Gus Edwards is going to be that good either. In fact, I almost debated having him as a start or a sit this week, as it's a tough matchup against the Atlanta Falcons. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see Kamani Vidal. Again, this has been the case all season. We've been waiting for it all season. J.K. Dobbins was going to get hurt at some point, which should open the door for Kamani Vidal, as he's more than just a between the tackles grinder. He does have some pass catching abilities, is a lot more explosive than Gus Edwards. So I would try to get the stash of Kamani Vidal. I don't know if Jonathan Brooks is someone I would drop for Gus Edwards, but if that's your best option, I would rather have Gus Edwards than Jonathan Brooks. It's I mean, like it's just very to me. Would you rather start TJ Hawkinson or K. Dotton this week? And the answer is pretty much always going to be TJ Hawkinson. He's here and he's awesome. Would you start the Cowboys defense versus the Giants or the Rams defense? And I don't remember who the Rams are playing, but Cowboys defense versus the Giants seems good enough to me. Start 2 between Terry McLaurin, Ladd McConkey, Calvin Ridley, and Juwan Jennings. Let's go with Calvin Ridley for one of them. And then probably Terry McLaurin, just honestly stick in that game. I know Ladd McConkey has been kind of killing it, but tough matchup against the Falcons. I think that'll be lower scoring. I like the Commanders-Titans game. I think both those wide receiver ones should be good. Would you rather start Jordan Love or Jaden Daniels? I might actually go with Jordan Love this week. The Dolphins is a softer matchup. I think it'll be a shootout. And while I think the Commanders-Titans could be a shootout, I could also end up seeing it like Jaden Daniels has another kind of stinker day. So it's tough. I mean, this is a total coin flip. You don't really want to bench either of those, but I think Jordan Love has a slightly higher floor with a similar ceiling. Start 2, Tony Pollard, Tyrone Tracy, Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt, Bucky Irving, Jonathan Brooks. That is a lot. I would say Tyrone Tracy and Tony Pollard, I think. Let's see what happens with the Chiefs backfield. This is a soft matchup against the Panthers, so I don't think they're going to have to force Pacheco back too much. They're not even playing the Panthers, the Raiders. But still, another soft matchup. So I think that Pacheco will have more carries than Hunt, but I don't know if he's startable over even Bucky Irving, Tyrone Tracy, or Tony Pollard. I would say Tyrone Tracy because it's a soft matchup against the Cowboys' run defense. And then it's between Bucky Irving and Tony Pollard. I'm going with Tony Pollard since it's, mostly his backfield. Whereas Bucky Irving does split it with Rachaad White. It could go either way. So I don't know, but DB Cooper down here, Quincy, says that they don't really trust Tracy. So if you don't trust Tracy yourself, maybe go with Bucky. But I think Tracy and Pollard is maybe the answer. Would you flex Jonnu over guys like Darnell Mooney, Jamison Williams, and Tyrone Tracy? No. Maybe Mooney, but no. Need some help with the flex. Full PPR. Jalen Waddle, MBS, Alexander Madison, Taysom Hill, David Njoku, Amir Abdullah. I would say Taysom Hill or Jalen Waddle. I'm going to lean Taysom Hill just because that dude has a massive ceiling week in, week out, and does it all for that offense. But Jalen Waddle is also a good option too. It's going to be between those two. I'm going to lean Taysom. You need to start 3 wide receivers. JSN, Rome Odunze, Michael Pittman, Nick Westbrook-Akine, Jacoby Myers, Khalil Shakir. JSN for sure. And then I like Khalil Shakir against the 49ers, especially if it's full PPR. And then let's just go with Akine. Akine has just been so consistent, and I think he probably keeps it going. Thank you for the support, Jimbo. I felt on my top 10 takeaways. I wasn't able to bring the energy. I was really tired that day, but still was fun to be able to do it. Start 2. Debo, Jennings, Downs, Valdez-Scantling, Xavier Worthy, Waddle, or Nick Westbrook. Man, dude. Waddle and Debo, I think. What would you trade for Vidal in a dynasty league? I would probably give a third. Try a fourth, and if they say no, give a third. Would you trade Purdy and Pollard for Joe Burrow in dynasty? Yes. Yes, I would. And flex 1, James Conner or Taysom Hill. Let's go with Taysom Hill. Let's just go with Taysom Hill. Just shoot for the moon there. Go with Taysom Hill. James Conner, definitely the higher floor, but that is a tough Vikings run defense. So I could see it kind of coming down to the pass a little bit more in that game with Taysom Hill being able to do a lot against that soft Rams defense. And that should do it. What a fun episode. Thank you all so much for tuning in. As always, make sure you hit that like button and make sure you subscribe. You can follow me on social media as well at JFootballWine. Make sure you hit that bell to get notified when we go live. We will be here tomorrow with a special Thanksgiving episode. It will be pre-recorded, but I'm going to give you my underdog picks, my fast draft, my draft kings. We're going to go game by game, kind of just doing a little bit of a Thanksgiving preview. will be pre-recorded, but it'll still be fun. So make sure you tune in tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern as you're preparing for your feasts. Everyone, have a wonderful Wednesday, a fantastic rest of your week. I'll see you tomorrow, but we'll be back live on Friday. Have a good one. Peace.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to PlayerProfiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, Data Analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.